Okay, so as usual, please be sure to turn off your video if you don't want to be seen on YouTube. We're getting ready to live stream right now. This meeting, just like the other Tuesday talks, is live streamed and recorded for later viewing, and I add it to a Tuesday talk playlist. So in case you ever miss one and you want to go back and find it, I try to include the link to the playlist in addition to today's recording in the post-meeting notes. All right, today is September 28th. It's 10:03 a.m., a little bit later than usual, but we still will end on time, if not even a little bit early. The conversation list today is pretty short, but let's not limit that to what we want to talk about. There might be other questions or add-ons, side notes to some of the stuff that we go over today. Don't be shy. Go ahead and unmute yourself if you have a question. If you want to raise your hand, go ahead. I don't always see what's in chat or when you raise your hand because sometimes I'm looking at my meeting notes document, so I'm not really looking at people. Like right now, I just turned it on so I can see what's the first thing we're going to talk about. All right, the first item I have on my list, it's about crisis communications. What is it? What resources are available, and what to do if your church is in a crisis. So today's conversation, I'm hoping it's kind of just a preamble or step one to a larger conversation about crisis communications. I feel like that's one of those areas where we don't always realize what we don't know. So we wouldn't know what to ask about or whatever. Maybe that doesn't make sense. So I'm going to start with square one. So crisis communications, it's basically when something happens at the church. What's something? It could be embezzlement. It could be a scandal of some sort. It could be a fire. There's all sorts of different things. It's not always something criminal, but it is going to be something where the public perception of the church could be tarnished. So with crisis communications, the main goal is all about PR, trying to restore that sense of trust, that sense of, togetherness with the church and church family, like the church cares, because of course the church does care, and that's part of why churches exist, right? We're creating new disciples for Jesus Christ, and that's not something that trust isn't deeply involved in that. So if there's no trust, then how can you create new disciples? How can you care for people if there's no trust? So that's really the main goal of crisis communications. The side note goal, or equally important, I guess the outer people's goal for a crisis communication, is to inform your community of what happened, what's going on. And again, it's going back to the main goal of to restore trust, to make sure that there's open communication. It's a healthy relationship back and forth. They know what's going on. They know you're not hiding anything, that leaders in the church are not hiding anything. But at the same time, you're also protecting those that may be under investigation, protecting potential victims. So there's only so much you can say, but there are ways you can communicate without saying the things that you're not supposed or allowed to share because of a legal investigation or whatever. I hope I'm making sense so far. Have I lost anybody? Okay. So some of the stuff to think about, I guess I'll explain what I do, what my role is in a crisis communication situation. So maybe something happens, let's say it's ABC Church. I mentioned embezzlement, so I'll just go with that. So it turns out that embezzlement was discovered at ABC Church. And it could be that the embezzlement situation is something where, we're suspecting something's not on the up and up here. So that would be like a smoldering crisis. It's not really hit the fan yet. We don't know for sure what happened, what didn't happen, or maybe we're in the stage where, this definitely is not okay. We need to call the authorities. Or maybe you're in the stage where cops are already involved, an investigation is already involved. So any of those stages, if you haven't done so already, it's a good time to contact your district superintendent. They'll bring me in the loop. If you think of me first, that's okay. I'll be sure to send you back over to the district superintendent. And together we work on different aspects of crisis communication. We all have all sorts of resources available. Sometimes we need to include our own conference lawyer in the conversation or other leadership, but the crisis communication plan kind of outlines who all needs to be involved in a specific crisis scenario. And there's, I'm sure, many others out there that are not included in the packet, which I will send to you guys so that you have it handy, the local church version. And I'm planning on going through it and updating it, so that's another reason why I think we should do another one of these talks down the road. And so I welcome any questions or ideas of what's missing or I didn't understand this, because that'll help me better understand how to revise it so it makes more sense, so it's more usable. Okay, so we involve the district superintendent. District superintendent involves me, and it's all very confidential. We don't tell anybody else, not even within conference staff, what's going on. Even in my household, my spouse has no idea if I'm working on a crisis communication situation. It's all very, very confidential, and it's often really uncomfortable because a lot of times you're having to talk about well-respected people in the church. It could be a staff person, who knows? And so it's uncomfortable, and there's throughout the process, there's often prayer involved. So don't mean to get too sidetracked. So trying to stick with it without being too compassionate and empathetic. So I want to get you guys the facts. So crisis happens, contact DS. DS brings me into it. I might have some additional questions about, who is the person that was involved. Whatever, the DS will give me as much information as they've gathered as they could get, and then I might continue, like I said, with questions, and maybe not, maybe I have everything I need, but that helps me to start putting together some kind of draft statements of and figuring out who all needs to be involved in this conversation and at which stages. Sometimes it could be something that's for someone to read from the pulpit. It could be just a staff email to inform staff that blah, blah, blah is happening. It could be a letter to the congregation. It could be all of those. It could be a statement for the pastor to read to reporters because reporters are wanting a press conference or contacting the church. Some of what's included in this package that I'll send would be a telephone log, because as the frontline person, you might be the frontline person. It could be a volunteer receptionist. It could be your usher. Who knows? Whoever it is that a reporter might contact first, wanting to know all the details about, hey, I heard this terrible thing happened at your church. What information do you have about it? Or who can I talk to about it? So that's really a very scary situation for the person from the church to be in, especially if they don't know what happened. It would be really easy for a person taken off guard, not knowing that this happened and not having a script ready for them and having no instructions on what to do, to say things like, oh my gosh, no way, I didn't know that about that person, I wondered, or whatever. And then suddenly it's like, oh, well, you wondered, what did you wonder about? Tell me about what happened in the past. And next thing you know, this wonderful church volunteer is now accidentally spreading rumors or thoughts that, have no basis, but, they're thinking it's just a conversation. They're thrown off guard. So with the crisis communication resources, we try to think about all those different areas where a reporter might make first contact with the church. And we try to provide resources for those people number one, training so that they understand here's what might happen, here's how it can go, and here's how you can use this document that we're giving you to respond in a professional way, in a nice way, in a way that's going to get the reporter to trust you and just wait to be called back. So there's a couple things that person would get. They would get a script that's got the hold response, which is basically, thanks so much for calling, or, I understand. It's a whole thing. It's like a little paragraph that says things about wanting to know what news outlet you're from, what are your questions, asking about their deadline, explaining that, hey, this is really important. I get that. I'm going to get this information to the right person, the person that has the information you need, and I'm going to do what I can to help them get connected to you within your deadline. So it makes it seem like, I'm with you, reporter. I'm trying to help you. And so there's no reason for the reporter to try to seek out other people. They feel like they contacted the right person and they can trust that they're going to get a call back from the pastor or the trustee's chair or whoever it is that's going to be the spokesperson from your church. The other piece that they get is the telephone log, and that's where they write down everything, who the reporter is, what media outlet they came from, the deadlines, the questions, all that. And they get that either, if they hand wrote it all, then maybe take a picture or scan it and send it to the right person, or call that person and say, oh, so-and-so called from this news outlet and here are the questions they have. I wrote it all down. Do you want me to send it to you as an email? Whatever. So that part happens. Then your spokesperson by then would have also the draft or a finalized statement to say to the media. We would have talking points, like bullet points underneath the statement, so that if the reporter asks follow-up questions, the spokesperson can go back to those bullet points and be able to kind of pivot back to the church cares, here's what the church is doing about it, and I don't have my notes in front of me, so I don't remember the specifics, but also, another piece is, so I mentioned that these are drafts, so it's not, don't misunderstand me, I just do like the first draft, and then the pastor, the district superintendent, everybody takes a look at it and they revise it so it fits for your church. My goal is just to make sure that we do get those main points in there about the church cares and here's what we're doing about it. Then it's the pastor and the district superintendent together that work on the pieces like, does this sound like something I would say? Does this sound like our church? So a lot of times they'll add in their prayer component, something about the church's mission or vision. So it really personalizes it. So it's not like they're just spitting out the words that I emailed. It's not like that at all. It's very much a partnership. And I try to make it clear about these are the things that we need to, the points that we need to keep in there. But however we say it, that's up to the pastor or DS or however that works. Let's see, questions so far? No, okay. There's more to it than that. After the crisis situation, some of the other things that sometimes happens, depending on the situation, or maybe it's how long ago a church has had training. If they didn't ever get the crisis communication training, I might do a Zoom meeting like this, or sometimes an in-person meeting, and with the district superintendent and the pastor and some of the staff that might be talked to or asked about the crisis. They might be involved, and we'll do a little crisis communication training, and we'll talk about different aspects about how this crisis might roll out at the church and what else do we need to put together. So it is a difficult, heart-wrenching situation because, we all love our churches. We love our members, our staff. You don't ever want to think that anybody's trying to do anything bad at the church. And I don't know, I'm not I'm not the judge or jury or anything. We care about all the people, and we want to. In that part of the I do care, but it's the pastor and the DS that are mostly doing the whole pastoral care. My part of it is public relations for the church, and so it's not that I don't care. It's just that's what I need to take care of. It's not my job to do pastoral care. Anyway, so I'll have more details for you guys, and I want to try to do almost like a little mini training so we could even practice some of the ways that a reporter might call, and I'll do my best to try to trump you guys, try to get you to mess up. Not so that you mess up, but so that you have that anxiety experience, that feeling that'll help you if it ever does come to reality that a reporter calls, so that you have that experience of knowing how to pivot back to your talking points. Not that you would necessarily be the spokesperson, but if you're the person that answers the phone when a reporter calls, you've got your own set of talking points where you're not talking about the crisis at all, but just bringing them back to, oh yes, I understand that you're really concerned, or that you've got questions, and that's why I want to get your information as quickly as possible to our spokesperson, to our pastor, to whoever. That it's that sort of thing. Bridging back to your goal is just to get their information and get it to the spokesperson. Okay, so like I said, I will send you guys the old version of the local church crisis communications packet. The idea is that every church is going to have one of these. Personalize it to your church. Some of the first pages have you fill in the blank with pastor's name, maybe trustee's name, and contact information, all that needs to be handy. At the conference office, we do the exact same thing. It's just a conference version of the local church crisis communication plan, and we'll keep a big binder right by the receptionist desk that has lots of printouts of the telephone log sheet, the contacts in there. So it's really easy for whoever it is that's at the reception desk to just, oh, it's a reporter, 1 second. They bring out the booklet, and then they know what to say and what to capture. So that's the sort of thing that we want you guys to do at the local church, so you guys are ready. It might be at your church office reception desk. It might also be at if you have like a office manager, you might have one at the office manager's desk. Maybe in the trustee's closet in the sanctuary, because the reporter could show up in person. So that's another set of that brings me to another part of the crisis communication training that we'll talk about, is what to do if the reporter does show up, let's say on a Sunday after worship, before worship, or they don't even go up and talk to anybody, but they're on the church property. What can you do? We'll talk about, as a spokesperson, how should you behave? What should you wear? Should you be funny or not funny? Things like that we'll talk about down the road. But I feel like I've shared quite a bit now about crisis communication. So I'm going to move on to the next item unless there's any questions. No, we're good? Okay. Next item is, so how to sleuth if a Facebook profile is legitimate. Like, is it a new friend, or is it just some scammer trying to cause all sorts of problems? I'm open to any ideas that you guys have of what you do for that. I've got 4 kind of checklist things in no particular order. In fact, I think one of the very first things that I do is I check their about. So I'll take a look at the picture and see, like, does this person look like a real person, or is this like something that, like, do they not look real? Like, is this supposed to be like a catfish situation? So I check the about to see things like how long have they had their account. If it's just been for a couple weeks, probably not a real profile. I mean, anybody could start at any point, but that's one of my first red flags. Next thing is on their, again, about, a lot of us put in there what school we went to or where we work. So I've noticed that when I've discovered some of these scammers, either there's no information or the information is kind of weird. Like it could be University of Funnytown. It's, because I know it's not always bad people, it's not always scammers exactly. It could be a teenager just trying to be funny and cause problems. So they're going to make their fake profile a graduate of Funnytown University or working at, I don't know, ABC Salsa Goofy. I don't know. I don't know what kind of a weird job that is, but things like that could be another red flag if it seems like really not real information in there. Maybe checking their friends list to see what friends you have in common. That helps me in two ways. Number one, if there are just a ton of friends in common, well, this is probably a legitimate person. I'll continue checking, but that's one item. If there's one or two friends in common, I try to keep track of that so that if I discover that this is fake, I can go back and talk to those two people and let them know, hey, I got a friend request from this person and it looks like you're already friends with them. I don't think that they're real. Do you actually know these people? And check and see what things they've posted on your timeline or what they've commented, what they've shared, just to try to encourage them to drop that person as a friend as well. So yeah, so I'll also go through that person's profile and see what pictures do they have. Do they have just like one profile picture and that's it? That's not normal. What things have they posted? Is it normal stuff? How often do they post? Like I know I don't hardly ever post on my personal page profile anymore, because usually when I'm on social media it's for work, and so I'm not interested in doing it for personal reasons anymore. But you would still be able to see in my history when I share work-related things, and it makes sense for who I say I am. So if this person, this scammer, potential scammer, has posts in there that don't match who they say they are, and what does that mean? So maybe it's, I don't know, they say that they work for computer technology something or other, I don't know, and they're posting things about, I don't know, I can't think, fluffy cats. I mean, a computer person could post stuff about cats. We all love to see cats online, but if that's all they're posting about fluffy cats and there was only like 2 or 3 posts, like why would this person be on social media? It just doesn't make sense. Who's their family on here? Who's their friends on there? If it turns out that all their friends on social media, because you can also check their friends, are also fans of fluffy cats, well, okay, maybe that's their thing. So that could be legit. But you just gotta take a look and see how many red flags went through. So we said checking their friends list. What friends do they have in common? Do they have any followers? You don't have to be some social media megastar to have followers. Your friends and family are going to want to know what you're posting. They're going to follow you. But if it's a fake profile, you probably have 0 to maybe 2 followers. Because FYI, they're often, I've noticed that sometimes I'll find out one fake profile and discover some of their friends are also fake profiles that were part of our group or whatever. So that kind of helps me to find other fakers. But let's see. So checking their history, is it a new account? Do they have shady posts? So also, maybe they are really active on there. Maybe it's a legitimate profile. But if you see that the stuff that they're normally posting in other areas are very different than what your church's Facebook group is all about, the one they're trying to join, like it's opposite. I personally would probably not let them join, just because I'm suspecting they're wanting to get in there just to cause all sorts of ruckus. it doesn't mean that you can't have different-minded people in your group. It's just if it's an extreme posts that they're doing somewhere else, you can only assume that they're going to try to cause problems in this group. There could be people that don't agree with what you're posting, but they want to learn more about the opposite side. If they're not posting extreme stuff, okay, fine, they can be part of the group. But that's something that you'd need to think about. So limited content, we said that. Posts match who they say they are, yep. The about with the weird school or job, photos limited. That was in checking their history, URL. Oh, yeah, here's a quick one. Could be, and it's the last one, is the URL on their Facebook profile same or similar to what their name is on Facebook? If it's some weirdo, like, I don't know, just something weird, that's another red flag. For most of us, our Facebook profile is going to be, like for me, it's probably facebook.com/christina.dillabo. Maybe there's some other stuff in there that Facebook puts in there, but it's going to match my profile name. And unless I customized it to something like C. Dillabo or Christina D, but it's still similar to my profile name. So watch out for that one. That's a pretty quick one to spot if it's a fake profile. Have I missed any? You guys think of anything else that you normally do? No. And of course, so one of the reasons why you'd want to be careful to not allow someone like that into your church's Facebook group is probably they're going to want to start posting things, whether it's just to disrupt and cause chaos, or if it really is a scammer, then they're probably going to post something that has a link to it to, oh, check out this great deal on blah, blah, blah. And that could open up your group members to, I don't know, is it a virus, to, there's other bad stuff that can happen, and you guys get it. So you want to make sure that you block and delete any of their posts, hide that person so that they can't ever come back. And there's also now options in Facebook where if that profile creates new profiles, it can also block those new profiles. How cool is that? I just discovered that one today. Okay, recent questions from the local church. Our church received an application from CCLI for a new license, CCS, Christian Copyright Solutions. It says we need this for performance of songs outside of worship. I thought we had performance or recording rights through CCLI. So that is, it's a wrong question, if that's okay to say, because CCS, or Christian Copyright Solutions, is a whole other company from CCLI. So I wanted to first clarify that, because I think that there's been more than one church that has received the same thing from Christian Copyright Solutions about, hey, you need this if you're performing outside of worship or whatever. And because sometimes CCLI is mentioned in that conversation, it's really easy to get confused and think, oh, okay, so it's all part of the same copyright company that the Desert Southwest Conference is paying for all of our churches. And no, it's not the case. It's two separate organizations, and Desert Southwest Conference is only covering, I hate to say only, because it is a significant chunk. It's a big deal that the conference is able to do this. We secured a group license discount for all of our churches through CCLI for church copyright, and it's streaming, but now I'm not remembering the official name of it, but it's also through CCLI, not CCS or CSS?
You had it.
Thank you. And since David's here, I'm guessing he's got some more information to share.
Oh, I don't know.
Maybe?
I'm just jumping in to see what was going on, and
gotcha.
If I have something, yay. If I don't, I don't. I'm sorry. I was tied up on a work meeting, and
no problem. So the other piece that I do share is not only to make it clear that it is two separate companies, so that's one, and that the conference is only paying for the CCLI ones. It's 2 licenses through CCLI. That's point number 2. And the third point is, but some of our churches do buy a license with church. I already forgot again. Was it CCS or
Church
CS?
Copyright Solutions.
Thank you. Church Copyright Solutions.
And also one license is the other.
And one license, yeah. So I try to reiterate whenever I can that just because our churches have the CCLI copyright license and streaming license, it doesn't mean that you're covered to use every song out there, not even every song in the hymnal. So some of our churches do go ahead and purchase one or both of those other licenses so that they can use more songs that they want to use. So they don't have as many limitations and they can stream it no problem, and have the lyrics on their PowerPoint presentation, or have the music for the choir to practice with. So that's the big deal. It's those 3 things. It's 2 separate companies, and typically it is 3 companies that we're talking about: CCLI, Church Copyright Solutions, Church Copyright Solutions, and one license. So those 3 of them are, I guess, the most popular ones, if not the only ones, maybe. No, I'm sure there's others out there that our churches could be using, but the conference only pays for the CCLI ones, and it's just the copyright license and the streaming license. There's other services that you can get through CCLI, but the conference is only paying for those 2. And would you need a different license to perform that song that is covered in CCLI for, let's say there's an evening program, maybe your church is hosting a art night, and so people can walk through and look at your member art and listen to the church band play these songs that are covered. I mean, you probably wouldn't be streaming that, so the streaming license isn't going to be applicable, but maybe you've got PowerPoint slides of the lyrics up, so you need the copyright license for that live performance. And so this part, if I'm wrong, David, please correct me, but I'm pretty sure that if you have the copyright license, it doesn't matter if your church band is performing for worship or for a different event, you're still covered with the CCLI copyright license. Is that right?
Not exactly. So yeah, that's where it gets really kind of goofy. CCLI really is intended just for worship services, whereas CCS, Christian Copyright Solutions, has some other licensing that you can get that can cover you for all sorts of other events, like concerts. Like, let's say you're giving or for music that you're playing just out in your church somewhere for a random thing, then you could be licensed for that. It's broader. The CCS has some broader options. CCLI is designed so, like, if my church praise band went on the road and wanted to perform for a community function, that our CCLI license is not covering us for doing that. Yeah.
Ooh, learn something new.
Yeah.
Because I even checked the CCLI website to see if I could find specifics. I couldn't find it, but I was still kind of cautious, kind of worried about that one.
Yeah. But the good news is the primary reason why we get these is just to cover the worship, and that's what. And the whole thing about putting them, then your worship services online, the streaming thing, yeah, but it's a moving target. They're kind of making it up as they go along in terms of what's legal and what's not legal. But they generally do say that it's reasonable that you're putting it where people can see it because of the pandemic, and that the streaming isn't always just in real time, that you can leave it on Facebook or YouTube where you stream to. So that most licensing arrangements are fine with that. Some have some actual specific provisions saying you can only leave it up for 1 year, but that you have to read the fine print of whatever service you're using.
Okay, thanks, David.
Sure.
Very informative. I'll be sure to include that clarification in the post-meeting notes so nobody misses it. Which reminds me, one of the things that you guys might have missed, so last week, so we're done with our scheduled topic items, but last week, one of the questions that we didn't get to was about buying equipment at a discount. Like what resources does the local church in the Desert Southwest Conference have for if you want to buy a new printer or you need to buy a new computer or a scanner or whatever? Is there any discounts available? I did include the notes in the post-meeting wrap-up, but after I sent that, I heard back from GCFA, and they said that absolutely they would be available to work with the church, even if it was just all we need is a new scanner. And that they're totally fine with that. They can work with you directly to get you the best deal that they can get. So that part was something that I think I promised to follow up on, so followed up. Any other questions or comments? Oh, we've got a couple things in chat. Oh, thank you, David. It's the Christian Copyright Solutions link. I will include that as well in the post-meeting wrap-up. All right, so if there's nothing else, then I guess we're done for today, and hope you guys have a great week. I'll see you next week.